if he was doing it with live drums, that he had some kind of triggers, because they put these triggers on live drums that make it sound like you're doing 4 drums and stuff like that. If I can remember right, because
this is a trick of the trade here, huh?
Well, I just used to watch some of the local bands and stuff, and they'd have it's like a sensor trigger. So when they hit this drum, what I think in my mind it was like hitting 2 drums, like one delayed right after another. So
if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times, and I'm really looking forward to dispelling this rumor. Stick around. Alright, first of all, before we get into the content of the video, obviously, as you can see in the title, we're going to be talking about triggers a little bit here. But before we do that, I want to say a quick shout out to the Trash Talkers YouTube channel. They allowed me very graciously to use a clip from one of their episodes where they were reacting to a song by the band Infinite Annihilator with one of their friends. And he was the one actually who made the statement in that video that I wanted to keep that clip for, because he's kind of my stand-in for everyone else who's ever said that. So this is not me reacting directly to them, this is me just using them and that particular quote from that particular episode as, you know, an example of what many people have said about triggers over the years. If you guys happen to see this video, also I want to say a quick thank you for you guys checking out some of the one of the songs that I recommended to you guys, and keep up the good work on your channel. Also, I want to say a quick thank you to everybody who watched my last video, which was the Don't Stop Believing drum cover, which was the first drum cover I posted on this video. If you guys are on this channel, if you guys happen to come across this video further on down the road, I'm going to try to keep up content. I'm hoping to do like maybe once a week, once every other week, something like that. It's going to be both kind of a mix of vlogs, covers. I might throw in some clips from me playing with my band in our practice space. Depending on what comes out of those situations. We might, if we get to go to any shows or talk with other drummers or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon in this current environment in 2020, but who knows, something might come out of all of that. So let's get into what we want to talk about here. So what is a trigger? What does it do? Why do drummers use them? Is it magic? So I just want to kind of talk about that real quick. So first of all, what is a trigger? A trigger is one of these in its simplest form. This is a piezo. You can find these in hardware stores. You used to be able to find them in Radio Shack when Radio Shack was still a thing. If you happen to be living near Radio Shack, drop a comment below, because I think there's maybe 70 of those stores left in the whole US. So anyways, that's besides the point. These are cheap devices. I think I bought 6 of these on Amazon for like $10. And you would think, well, obviously some of the better brands aren't using those. Guess what? I worked on a buddy of mine's Roland kick drum 2 months ago, and guess what was inside? Was one of these things. So this is what they use. It's pretty much standard. If you look on the module, it calls it a piezo as well. All right. So what did they do? Well, in household purposes or applications, these are used for door buzzers, beepers, such like that. You put a current through it, it causes the filament here to change shape and to vibrate, and then they put a housing around it, it causes it to buzz, beep, whatever. In those situations, in drumming, it's kind of almost the exact opposite. Somehow these get connected to the drum head, whether it's via directly, whether it has something else that it sits inside, and maybe that has something else that attaches to it that then connects to the drum head. Also, another example, I have here one of my foot blaster triggers that triggers my kick pedal. In this case, the receiver is inside of here. Obviously, it's got a housing built around it, and then it sends the signal back out through this. In both cases, what happens is it sends the signal out through a 1/4-inch connection, or in some cases XLR. D-Drum has some XLR triggers. Anyway, but it goes into one of these modules right here, like this one, and then it plays the sample that you have selected for that particular input. You make it sound like a bass drum, kick drum, or snare drum, toms, cymbals, whatever. I have a basic layout of a 6-piece drum set with a couple crashes, china, hi-hats, with this particular electronic drum set mimicking what I would typically play with a acoustic kit. And again, the sound samples that I'm selecting for each one mimics the sounds of an acoustic kit in that case. So obviously, as you can tell, a electronic drum set, that's how it works. That's basically the gist of it. It has a piezo inside of the head, or connected to the head in some way, or to the pad, or to whatever device you're hitting has a trigger, a piezo inside of that sends a signal to a module. That's the simplest form. In acoustic drums, obviously, why would somebody trigger an acoustic drum? I'm gonna play you a clip.
Guys, if I play heavy, you still get the same volume. While without the trigger, you can sense the difference. Okay?
So in the clip you just heard, that was George Callias, the drummer for Nile, and he was talking about using triggers and microphones. The first part of that clip you heard was him using the trigger on his kick drum. The second part of that clip was him using or playing the same thing without triggers. You could hear the difference in the sound as far as the less amount of attack that you could hear in the second clip versus the first. That's not to say that you can't do it without a trigger. You can do it with microphones, as he goes on later to say in that video. He still mics his kick drums when he plays in studios. They still use them for sound, so you can get a more full effect. He just uses the triggers to maybe layer in addition. When he's playing live, he doesn't mic the kick drums at all. He only uses the triggered sounds. Because that's the sound that he needs to get to the crowd. For me personally, I have done both. I had a kit that when I was playing in a rock band, I did not trigger anything on that particular drum set because I just wanted it to sound like the drums themselves. Which you can do, and many drummers do, most drummers do when they're playing live. They just play the drums as they were built with whatever heads they feel accustomed to, and then that's the sounds you hear. Some drummers do it with triggers so that they can add additional layer of sounds in. A good example of that is Vinnie Paul from Pantera. When he was still alive, rest in peace, he used them as a way to get an additional layer of attack on top of his drums, in addition to the resonance that he was getting from the drum itself. It was a way that he could get the best of both worlds in those particular settings. And let's be honest, Pantera would not sound the way they do if it wasn't for the sound of the drums on those albums. Another reason why sometimes drummers do it is for monitoring purposes. Derek Roddy is a good example of this now. He doesn't use triggers for the sound going out to the crowd. He uses triggers for his own in-ear monitors, so that when he's playing, he has a very clicky, very tight bass drum sound that is probably louder than the rest of his drum set going into his in-ears, so that when he's playing along to a metronome, he can make sure that his feet are in time and that he's actually playing what he thinks he's playing, because at the speeds he's playing at, it might just sound like mud. He might think he's playing it, but by doing it that way, he knows for sure he's dead on time. If I'm correct, I believe monitoring is also a reason why Anders Herrick of Chimera also used triggers, was for the whole band to have a good kick drum sound in their monitors, versus using whatever microphone setup he had at that time. So does it allow you to do fast double bass? Does it allow you to do more than what your technique is capable of allowing you to play? You could, I guess, theoretically, make the argument that because you could also use the module to flatten out the velocity and adjust the sensitivity of the triggers, and allow you to pick up both light hits and hard hits, and even that volume back out, that in some cases it is cheating, because you're maybe moving the pedal that far and it sounds like you're really digging into it. So some people would argue that that's cheating because you're using a technique that if you were playing without triggers, you'd have to have microphones and you'd have to have them cranked way up, and then recording wise you could still do it with the compression and stuff to get everything kind of evened back out, but it's not the way most people would do that. if you're reliant solely upon triggers to be able to pull that off, as George Class explained in one of his other videos, he kind of slid his feet back a little bit more, so he was able to get a little bit more power out of his hits, so that he's not just feathering it to get the high speeds. He's able to get the same speeds with a little bit more power behind it, which also helps with triggering too, if you are someone who uses triggers, because then you know that it's going to pick up and it's going to figure out, it's going to adjust that, not adjust, but it's going to sense that hit better than if you hit it soft. Because if you turn the sensitivity up too high, you can actually have mistriggering incidents where the bass cap's too close to your drums, and when the bass player hits a low note, it vibrates your head enough, which is right next to your piezo, and it might cause the trigger on your drum to go off because you got your sensitivity set too high, and it picked up that bass cap, and all of a sudden it sounds like you're playing stuff that you're not really playing. Could you use it as a way to cheat? Could you set it up so it has a 1-2 delay, or a couple note delay, or maybe a run of 4 notes or something like that? I guess theoretically you could. And maybe that's where this rumor came from, and maybe somebody that the guy and the gentleman in the opening clip knew or interacted with, maybe that person did do that. I don't think it's likely, and the reason I say that is simply because, as any of you guys know who listen to rock, metal, that's those subgenres and that strain of music, that family of music, I guess, for lack of a better term, songs don't always keep the same tempo. They aren't always playing the same thing. You have your verse, chorus, bridge structures that change things up. The drums are no different than anything else in that regard. If the drum part doesn't stay playing the same thing the whole time. So for me or anyone else to set up on their module a 16th note run of bass drum notes off of a trigger, every time you hit the drum that is attached to that trigger, that's the sound you would get. My module is going to play 4 notes if that's the one I select for my bass drum. If I set that as the sample, then that's what it's going to play. And every time I hit it, it's going to do that. I would not have the option of just hitting one time and cutting it off, because there's no way to cut it off. And to switch back and forth between, a sample of 4 notes and a single note hit, you're not going to be able to do it on any modules quick enough during the middle of a song to be able to pull that off. And chances are you're probably not going to find, you're not going to be able to do it even if someone was off stage trying to do it, because modules have a little bit of loading time when you're switching from one thing to another. You don't want to try to do that mid-song either. So all in all, let's kind of maybe wrap this up a little bit before this video gets too long. So what do I want you guys to take away from this? What's the overall message that I'm trying to convey here? I guess what I'm trying to convey is, don't always believe what you're hearing in music in both ways. And whether it's what someone tells you or whether it's with something you hear. With drumming, yes, there's people who are able to play at speeds that you don't think are possible. And I suppose there are, there's also, bands out there that program their drums, and that's why you'll never see some of them play live. Infant Annihilator. Yet again, you should be skeptical on both sides. If somebody tells you that somebody's not actually capable of doing something, just do your research a little bit on your own. Look for live videos of somebody, because a live video a lot of times is going to reveal to you what is actually happening. If someone says, hey, listen to this metal record, and the drumming is super fast on it, and you're like, I don't know if that's real or not. Well, find a video of the band playing live. If they're able to do it live, chances are it's real, especially if you're able to find a video from the drummer's perspective where you can actually see what they're doing. YouTube has a great feature where you're able to slow videos down a little bit, and you can actually kind of watch it in a slower frame, and you can even see, is what the person doing in line with what I'm hearing? If it's not, call it BS and move on, and you can decide whether you still want to listen to that band or not, based on whether or not, or based on your own decisions. But in my case, I tend to not want to listen to bands that are faking their way through stuff like that. Just my personal preference. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to my channel. In the video description below, I'm also going to put a link to the original video of George Colias. I'm going to put a link to the Trash Talkers YouTube channel as well down there. Check out their Rappers React series. It's kind of cool getting to see musicians from another genre, you know, react to music that I grew up with. All that said and done, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. So I think my next video is actually going to be a drum cover. I got a couple songs that I'm working on right now. I haven't really gotten everything 100%, at least not enough to where I want to videotape myself playing them yet. So I don't want to spoil which ones they are, so you guys will just have to check it out. Again, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can catch that. I'm going to do a vlog video coming up very soon. There's going to be a review of my Alesis Strike Pro SE drum set that just came out this past year. I know there's other reviews of it on YouTube, but I kind of want to take it from the owner's perspective, which I don't believe there is one of those out there yet. They're all just kind of, you know, one-off reviews. So anyways, before I forget, again, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.